what people are complete fucking liars to themselves above all else. That's the truth of the matter. They don't want to be honest with themselves and tell themselves the truth about the person they really are. They want to blow smoke up their own assholes and tell total lies about the person that they really are, instead of confronting that person in the mirror directly, confrontatively, and acknowledging what they have really been a party to. Thank you, Brett, for doing a great job with the title card for this week's show, which is The Public's Misplaced Trust in Mainstream Institutions. And, you know, this is an homage here to the great film, the great science fiction allegorical film about what's going on in today's society, They Live, by John Carpenter. Said, just look at us. Everything is backwards. Everything is upside down. Doctors destroy health. Lawyers destroy justice. Psychiatrists destroy minds. Scientists destroy truth. Major media destroys information. Religions destroy spirituality. And governments destroy freedom. I don't think truer words were ever spoken. And I think this sentiment is, you know, what I'm opening this presentation with, this episode this week with, because I think Elner here accurately encapsulates exactly what is and has been for a long time taking place with the mainstream institutions of our society. And people who don't agree with this quote, I would suggest, are extraordinarily asleep. Now, one of the things I want to say is, last week I went pretty hard on people, okay? I, you know, had a pretty intense blow up on the air, because I'll tell you why. The last couple of shows actually were some of the most, I would say, not poorly received. They were well received by people, but they included some of the hardest resistance to the message of what on earth is happening that I have ever received by even my base audience, okay? And that is because the information that I was laying out in the last couple of episodes is some of the hardest in the world to hear. What we were talking about in the last couple of episodes was right livelihood. And this show kind of, in a way, is an adjunct to that. And it is a continuation of that topic in some ways. It's slightly different, but in many ways it is so closely related because it is about what the perceived purposes of the mainstream institutions are versus what they do in real life to human beings. Okay? And that's the clear thing that we have to have the discernment and the faculties of mind to distinguish between. One is an intended purpose, and then there's the thing that they are really doing in the real world, which is harmful. Okay? And when I was talking about being involved as a person who takes their paycheck, who makes their living for their daily expenses of life through working for some of these institutions, I got a lot of blowback from people who wanted to say, no, Mark, this is going too far, okay? You're attacking people's livelihood and their ability to put food on their table. Yes, that's exactly what I was doing. Because there is no excuse for doing harm to other people when we know what the right thing to do is and we know what the wrong thing to do is. It isn't about just taking their nonsense and bullshit and saying that it's okay. It's not okay. It never has been okay, and it never will be. And that's the problem with people. They're too soft. And people have too thin of a skin and get too easily offended when you tell them, you know what you're doing is wrong. You should stop doing it. It doesn't matter if you are poor as a result. It's a straight, direct, confrontative truth. That if what you are doing is causing harm to other people and therefore is not a right, then you should desist in that activity. Okay, so no, it isn't going too far. It isn't, you know, being too harsh or judgmental. It's actually just speaking uncomfortable truth to people that don't want to fucking hear it. That's all it really comes down to. Okay? So the same thing is going to apply today. And some people will say, well, this is common knowledge by the people who are aware and awake. And I'm going to address that Because part of this show today is not just reiterating something or, going over material that maybe the choir already knows, okay? It's not just speaking to the choir, because the last part of this, the middle part of this whole presentation is going to be about the psychological factors and reasons that people behave this way in the first place. And the last part of it is going to be about how the people who are in the truth movement think that the whole world's waking up because some people happen to be on the same page with them and understand what they understand. And they don't understand that that isn't what's happening. Okay? They're seeing the world through rose-colored glasses, as I've said. They are seeing it from a skewed, individuated perspective. And they don't understand just how much ignorance and darkness there is all around us. And I don't say that to try to discourage people, okay? If you actually believe that the vast majority of people in the world actually agree with this gentleman making this quote, you're absolutely out of your mind. Because the vast majority of the people of this planet absolutely believe that the very institutions that he just mentioned in this quote are their God. Are their actual complete God and Savior. And would do anything to protect them. And speak about them with the utmost respect and reverence. Okay? And I see it every day. I see it every single day. Any place I go in public, nobody is attacking any of these institutions. They believe that the healthcare system is wonderful. They believe the media is trying to tell them the truth. They believe government cares about them and is necessary. And on down the line of brainwashed imbecilism. Okay? And I mean, they're out there in hordes and droves. My own family is the perfect example. I just had a conversation with a family member. I said, I don't even go around the family that much. Okay, just as already an aside, an anecdote, okay? I don't go around the family that much anymore. I said, why don't you tell me what the rest of the family thinks about, do they ever talk about corruption in politics? Do they ever talk about how, totally screwed up the whole banking system is and how in bed with, corruption in politics that all is? Do they ever talk about how bad of a job the mainstream media is doing and how they're just a propaganda wing of the government? Do they ever talk about how science is just funded by government anymore and it's not really a pursuit of truth? Do they ever talk about, how the medical field is actually detrimental to human health? And the family member I was talking to goes, no, not one single member of the family ever touches on any of those subjects or topics and never talks about any of those institutions with condemnation, with criticism, let alone condemnation. And I would suggest that this is probably the general zeitgeist everywhere. Not just in my family, not just on the street, in the city that I live in this communist crap hole that I live in called Philadelphia, but I'd suggest that it's probably across the entire planet, over the entire world. That is the sentiment. There's a tiny, small, tiny fraction of people who get that all of these institutions are broken and are the problem themselves. Most people think it's just a tiny few bad people that are the problem. No, it isn't. It's almost everybody that's the problem. I think I was guilty of planting that seed in people's minds. In my earlier presentations, I talked about the sorcerers of the world being the crux of the problem. And that's not the case. While they're a huge problem, they're the causal factor of the problem. What we're going to be talking about here today is the causal factor of the problem, and that's people's trust in the institutional bodies of our society, which do absolutely nothing to make any aspect of life better for the human species. Zero. And not only don't we need them, we're infinitely worse with them in place. So let's jump forward here and start looking into what I'm actually talking about. What I would consider the 7 deadly mainstream institutions. We could liken these to the 7 deadly sins. Okay? These are the 7 Hydra heads. Okay? of evil in our society today. The big daddy of all of them, religion. And ultimately, every single one of these things is a form of religion. Okay? Again, I'm using religion in the wider sense. I've said last week that I think I need to go back and revisit the term religion maybe over and over again. Maybe harp on it until people are so tired of hearing me harp on it that they finally start spreading the real definition of what religion is in an overarching sense. Not just some person's limited cultural definition of some stupid religion that they happen to believe in or are considering. I'm talking about religion in the big sense of the term, meaning it holds you back from truth. It's a belief system. It's an institutionalized belief system that holds you back from the truth regarding reality, regarding the reality that is taking place around you and within you, in your own psyche. That's what all religion is. It doesn't have to be a formalized religion with doctrine and ritual. Banking is a religion, okay? The medical system as we know it today is a religion. Science as we know it today is a religion. The media is a religion. The educational system is a religion. Okay? Government is a religion. Money is a religion. This is what people don't understand. They say the word religion and they're totally brainwashed as to the actual definition. They think it means only the limited definition that they've been hammered into their soft, soggy brain that the word means. And they can't perceive something from a more multidimensional angle to encompass a wider understanding of what the word religion actually means. And that's why I say, when I'm talking about religion, here I'm talking about the cultural religions in general. Well, when I use the word religion in a wider sense, I am talking about indoctrinated belief systems, institutional belief systems that hold us back from an accurate understanding of the world and prevent our forward progress in consciousness. That's what the word religion in and of itself means. So religion is the one and only problem that humanity faces, because all of the problems that humanity faces are a subset of the one overarching problem, and that's wrong thinking. And that is exactly what religion fosters and foments. Wrong thinking, incorrect thinking, non-critical thinking, belief-based thinking, emotion-based thinking, instead of logic from facts that have been gathered, and dealing with reality head on, and dealing with what's going on in ourselves head on. No, we don't want any part in that. We want belief, and we want to be told the world is just hunky-dory, and there's no problem with the mainstream institutions. So these 7 deadly institutions, the 7 heads of the Hydra, okay, that we're up against in humanity: religion, government, media, education, banking and finance, healthcare and medicine, and science. Okay, and you can name other ones that are huge parts of the problem, but I would endeavor to say these are the biggest problem causers in the entire human world. And the fact that people still reverently believe that these things are doing what they claim that they are doing, and that we need them, and that if we didn't have them, human beings would be worse off instead of better. The fact that most people still believe that is the nature of the problem here on Earth. And, you know, I don't hear other people talking about this. You know, again, when I turn on alternative news media, I don't hear anybody really delving deep into the issues that are going on. They're talking about nonsense most of the time. They're talking about political nonsense. Looking at all the minutia, studying the veins on the leaf of the tree instead of pulling back and seeing the forest for what it is. That's what they're doing. They have tunnel vision and minutia vision. They don't look at big picture trends. They don't look at big picture thought processes that are actually steering humanity in a certain direction. And that's the problem. The inability to pull back and actually see the large picture. And that's why I'm reviewing this topic. You know, I went into this and called it, you know, identification with institutionalized belief systems in the past on what on earth is happening. We're actually looking at the actual trust that people place in these institutions in the modern world. They actually believe that they are here to serve what I am calling their ostensible purpose. So let's look at this dynamic, okay? We want to look at What is the difference between an ostensible purpose and the actual true purpose of what these institutions are doing? So the word ostensible is not a colloquial word. It's not a word that we use in everyday conversation or speech. You don't hear the word ostensible a lot. So some people might not even know what the definition of the word ostensible means. So I want to give everybody a very clear working definition of the word ostensible as I'm using it here throughout this slide presentation. Okay? The word ostensible means represented or appearing as such, not actually being what appearance indicates, suggesting an appearance to unaided senses, not borne out by rigorous examination or greater knowledge, based on deceptive resemblance or faulty observation, or influenced by emotions that present a clear view, illusory. I mean, I think that is probably the best definition of ostensible, the best working definition of ostensible that I could possibly lay down. Okay? Represented or appearing as such, meaning it's not actually that thing, it's just appearing to be it. Not actually being what appearance indicates, suggesting an appearance to, here's the key, unaided senses not borne out by rigorous examination or greater knowledge. It means the people who accept the ostensible representation of that thing have not done their homework. They have not actually rigorously examined the thing to determine what it's really doing or what it really is. They're just looking at it cursorily and saying, oh yeah, I believe that that's its real purpose for existing. They're not really delving down below the surface and looking at what's really going on. So they don't have, they're not doing rigorous investigation, and they don't have greater knowledge to understand what that thing is. Based on deceptive resemblance, meaning it's very much trying to appear as the real thing, but it's not that thing. Okay? Or faulty observation. Here's the key. The people who are looking at these institutions do not have the observational capabilities or discernment to accurately observe what they are doing and what they truly mean, what they truly represent. So they have faulty observation that they're looking at these institutions with. Influenced by emotions that prevent a clear view. Illusory. There you have it. That's exactly what I was talking about. We can't come to the truth of something by just emotionally reacting to it. Okay? You could have emotional reaction. That's perfectly valid. Okay? But you're not going to come to the truth about something through that. At best, what that will do is drive your actions and your behavior to do something about it when you have an emotional adverse reaction regarding how wrong that thing is, or how wrong the setup of that institution is and the harm that it's doing in our society to the people of our society. You could have all the adverse emotional reactions you want once you understand the actual nature of that institution. And then maybe that, true righteous indignation, that emotion of true righteous indignation, righteous anger, is going to drive you to actually do something about it to create real world change. What we are going to do here today is look at the mainstream institutions, and we are going to compare and contrast their ostensible purposes, the purposes that they state that they are there to do, and try to portray to the public that they the role that they are actually fulfilling in society, versus the true purpose of these institutions and what they are really doing through their actions to the people of our society. Okay? All right, so one of the things that I want to say is this is what our society really is like. This is what the average every man and every woman, okay, the average Joe Schmo and Mary Schmo, okay, really look like going through their daily lives, okay? They are wandering through life blindfolded, faulty observation, faulty perceptions, never really knowing what right and wrong are, never really knowing what is good for them and what is truly bad for them, okay? Because of the brainwashing that is done culturally through all the institutions I'm talking about here today. So there is no ability to discern truth on the part of the average member of the population. And the a bigger part of the problem actually is that the people who are awake and aware and understand the material I'm going to present here today actually believe, erroneously believe, because they want to believe that the world is better than it is, because they want hope. They're addicted to the drug called hope. Okay? They want to believe that the average Joe and Mary Schmo actually know what's going on and are aware, just like they're somewhat aware of the nature of the situation that we are in. Okay? The awake person I'm talking about. They're somewhat aware, at least. Okay? Maybe not completely, because they might not know the occult aspects of things, but they're at least aware of the 3D, institutional degradation and corruption aspect of our society. So don't make the mistake of thinking just because you're awake and a large portion of your friends may be awake, to not think that we're in a very, very tiny minority and the vast majority of human beings in the world are exactly in this situation that you see here. So let's look at the first, the granddaddy of them all, that is actually a form of what all the other institutions are, and that's religion. Now, again, we could define religion until the end of time, and people are still going to insist that that's not what it means. Religion does come from the Latin verb religare, and that verb does mean to bind, to hold back by tying, or to thwart from forward progress. The word religion definitively and definitely means that. As a positive connotation, the word religion can mean to reconnect, to rebind to. Okay, that is also an acceptable connotative definition of the word religion. Meaning, if we are exercising true religion, we can reconnect with the truth and with the laws of nature, natural law. Okay, but in the overarching sense that I am always using the word religion as meaning a problem in the world, a problem in society, okay, I am always generally referring to religion in the negative aspect, meaning it's something that holds us back from the truth and holds us back from a forward progress in consciousness. All of the religions of the world, the cultural religions of the world, make these overarching ostensible claims of their purpose. But this is their ostensible purpose, meaning it's not the real thing. It's the one that they want you to believe that they're doing. And that is, religion claims that it is connecting people with God or spirituality, or, quote, reconnecting, which is one of the connotative definitions of the word religion, to reconnect. So do the cultural religions really fulfill that promise? They claim to be showing people a better way of living through a moral way of life, through their allegorical stories, their parables, their, teachings, etc. And that moral way of life would, if it were really be done, would be coming into an accord, living in accordance with natural law, the moral laws of creation. Okay? This is the ostensible purpose of all of the religions of the world, no matter what they are. Okay? They claim we're connecting people to truth, to God, to spirituality, etc. And they say that we're showing people the way that they should really be living because we're showing them how to be a moral person. And I claim a huge crock of bullshit on that ostensible claim. I don't think that's what religion ever has done. I don't think it's what it's doing now. I don't think it's what it's going to do in the future. I don't think it will ever do that. I think that is a claim in name only, okay, or an ostensible purpose. But it isn't the real thing. It isn't what religion really does in the real world of nature to human beings and our society. If you really want to look, religion's been one of the biggest killers of human beings in the history of humanity. One of the things that has started probably more wars than any other dynamic in human society. So let's look at the true purpose of religion. What is it actually really doing in the real world, if we're being honest with ourselves? What people are complete fucking liars to themselves above all else. That's the truth of the matter. They don't want to be honest with themselves and tell themselves the truth about the person they really are. They want to blow smoke up their own assholes. and tell total lies about the person that they really are, instead of confronting that person in the mirror directly, confrontatively, and acknowledging what they have really been a party to. Okay? They don't want to look at that. They want to blow smoke up their own ass and blow smoke up other people's ass and lie to themselves and others about what they're actually doing in life. When what they're doing in life is either absolutely nothing and a big crock of garbage, or it's self-serving nonsense, or it's actually harming other individuals, their rights or their property. If we're being honest with ourselves. And that's the key term here. So let's look at religion's true purpose if we're being honest with ourselves. You know? So I think that scares off most people that don't want to be honest with themselves. You know? And I'm not interested in those people, quite frankly. Again, this show has never been about tailoring and baby spoon feeding people and making everybody comfortable and reaching the greatest amount of people. It's never been that. I know that that's never going to be my role or my function in this work. My role is to reach the people who have the will to be honest with themselves, and then who will take this framework and run with it and teach others in whatever way they can. So the true purpose of religion, if we're being honest with ourselves, is to misdirect the spiritual lives of people in order to make them more easily controllable. That's the whole purpose of religion. The whole purpose of religion is to get people hooked on dogma, promises of an afterlife, promises of a savior. Okay? Not to really teach people what real, true morality is. The true purpose is to hide or occult the true moral laws of creation, to hide or occult natural law. Religion is there so that you never really, truly look into what the natural law is of morality in life, in creation, in nature. These institutions are actually different legs of the spider that is the world of the occult, that is the whole network of dark occultism worldwide, that are really the controllers of the world. Religion is just one of their main outlets for the way that they actually perform their mind control upon people. And the true purpose is to get you running in circles of dogma and misunderstanding regarding what true morality is, instead of actually hitting the bullseye and really understanding what natural law is and how it functions in our lives. The true purpose of religion is also to make people more accepting and docile so that they accept government rulership. It's to work upon the right brain, to put people in a state of right brain imbalance, which is belief-based, which is unworthiness-based, meaning, oh, we're such bad people, we're unworthy, only God can save us. Instead of thinking we have to become worthy through taking in knowledge of truth and save ourselves. Oh, no, we have to wait for external forces and external saviors to come and rescue us from our own bullshit ignorance. Yeah, that's how it works, folks. Don't you know? And if we're being honest with ourselves, exactly what I have on this slide here today, folks, is exactly what religion does. Misdirects the spiritual lives of the people of the earth to make them more controllable. It occults true moral law called natural law, and it makes people more accepting and docile through keeping them in the imbalance of the right brain. So, take it for what it's worth, accept it or don't. That's not the ostensible purpose of religion. That's the true reason that the religious institutions are operating on the face of the earth. And everybody will go, oh yeah, it's all the other religions, just not mine. Mine is completely untouched by that corruption. But all the other ones, yeah, they're bad, they're broken, they're corrupt. Just not mine. Mine made it through all the way to the modern world, from the ancient world where these systems of mind control, dogmatic systems of mind control were invented, okay, to enslave humanity. And all the way up to the modern world, every other one got corrupted. Mine just made it through that gauntlet untouched, unscathed. Yeah. Keep lying to yourself, dunce. I mean, this is how stupid people sound. And let me tell you something, folks. People think, oh, the influence of religion isn't as strong as it used to be. You're out of your damn mind if you think so. Religion is as strong, if not stronger, than it ever has been in our society. And it's weaving its spider web into our lives in new and unforeseen ways. You know? Yeah, the dark aspects of the church have infiltrated the whole socialist movement and leftist movement in the United States, and they're raising up total communist Jesus camps. There's tons of them right here in Philadelphia, combining fake-ass Christianity with socialism and communism. You don't think so? You got to just look around and really see what's going on and put your finger on the pulse of it and open your eyes and look around as to what's really taking place and be honest with yourself about it, because most people don't even know this. But let me tell you something. It's going on in just about all the major populated cities of the United States. And religion's on the upswing, not the down. Let's go back. Here we go. Moving forward. Government. My favorite. Everybody's favorite who listens to What on Earth is Happening, right? Once again, not on the wane, completely on the rise. Trusted more than it ever has been in the history of the world. And I'm telling you, everybody defines their whole identity through what kind of politics they believe in. This is our entire society's identity. And the freedom movement wants to say, oh, people are waking up. They're really, not trusting government and just opening their eyes and seeing how corrupt it is. What planet do you live on? What planet do you live on? The vast majority of people still watching the news, as we're going to talk about, still believe the mainstream media, still believe the government's there to protect them and care for them. So people naively misplace their trust in this institution because they identify with and believe in its ostensible purpose. And the ostensible purpose of government is to maintain critical infrastructure, protect people's lives, rights, and property, punish wrongdoers, preserve justice in our society, and defend freedom from potential enemies, whether they be foreign or domestic. Enemies to freedom. This is what government tells you it's doing. You know? We're going to build and maintain the critical infrastructure of the country, you know? The road system, the transportation system, the communication system, the electrical system, etc. Water, gas, etc. All the necessities of life, right? We're going to protect people's lives, rights, and property. We're not going to take those things. We're not going to subject them and enslave them. We're going to protect your rights. Punish the wrongdoers. Somebody's got to do it, right? All people out, it would turn into a society of cannibals and murderers if not for government, right? Somebody's got to, bring those wrongdoers to justice and defend our freedom from enemies lurking around every corner. I mean, what kind of a smacked ass does someone have to be to actually believe this nonsense? But yet, that's 98% of probably our entire society. I'm going to say minimum number. 95% of society believes that that is the ostensible purpose of government. And they're smacked ass clowns. Period. I mean, there's no polite or nice way to say it. They're brainwashed children who never grew up emotionally, mentally, or spiritually. Never grew up. Stunted child development. So let's look at the true purpose of government if we're being honest with ourselves. Once again, you could lie to yourselves all day if you want, but if we're going to get down to the meat and potatoes of this, if we're going to get down to the nitty-gritty, and we're going to really tell ourselves the truth, this is what government is here on the earth to actually do. The true purpose of government is to control and ultimately enslave the people who are its subjects. Government sees itself, the people in government sees itself as a master class of commanders of other people, lawmakers, those who others must obey or be punished for not obeying. And you know what that's called, folks? I don't care what name you want to give it. That's called slavery. You want to euphemize it? You can euphemize it in whatever way your little naive, tiny, broken, and thin-skinned mind, wants to euphemize it as. But if you're a big boy and a big girl, you're going to call government for what it is and stop euphemizing it and saying that it's some other thing. You're going to say exactly what it is, and that's slavery. That's what government is. It's one class of people who are masters, who believe they have the moral right to issue commands to others that they call laws, which are often arbitrary, often conflicting, often different things in different places and different times, which makes them completely morally relative and not in keeping with the moral laws of creation, which do not change with time or location, and are not relative, and are not subjective. The real laws of morality are objective. So that's what government's really doing, folks. If we're being honest with ourselves, it is enslaving humanity. The true purpose of government is to dictate commands called laws to protect its own interests and limit any threat to its continued control. That's what government wants to do. That's its primary purpose. To continue to survive, to continue to grow, and to continue to limit the freedom of others so that any threat that those others may pose to its continuation is limited and or disposed. And that's what laws are for. And that's why there's more and more of them every single day. The third true purpose of government is to conduct abject violence in the name of safety and security, getting the naive children that are its slaves to believe that it's protecting them and keeping them safe, when in fact all it's really doing is conducting abject violence in other areas to take resources that it wants, or to shut down rights, shut down freedom. And let me tell you something, folks. It's not in here. Police and military are not in this list of the 7 deadly institutions, but they are part of government. Obviously, you have to take note of that. This is what I'm talking about. These are the conductors of the abject violence. These are the people that actually perform it. The order followers. You know, all government is one huge chain of obedience. Up from the order, at the top, the order givers, to all the way at the bottom, the order followers, the police and the military. Order following trash. The dogs of the commanders at the highest end of government, and those who really are the occultists, the dark occultists, who sit enthroned behind, in the shadows, behind ostensible government power. So the people who are really conducting the actual behaviors are the ones who are getting hit karmically the hardest, as the karmic clowns of the controller class at the highest ends of government and the occult. They call them their dogs, their pets, their animals. That's what they call the police and military. And yet they're just all too happy, like a slavering dog, a slavering dog, just, with its tongue hanging out, saliva dripping down. Tell me what to do next, master. I mean, just think about that for a minute. Not to belabor the whole topic of order followers. We've done whole shows on that, but just what kind of a person who even considers themselves a human being, let alone considers themselves men, are going to make their job, make their life. Can you imagine saying, I'm going to make my life just doing the behaviors that other people command me to do? I mean, what kind of a total ass retard do you have to be to think like that? Seriously. How broken does your brain and soul, and most of all your heart, have to be to just say to yourself, what my entire life is going to consist of is, I am going to stop thinking for myself about what's right and wrong, and I'm going to listen to what other people tell me to do as far as my actual behavior is concerned. Could you imagine? And you think you're a man with courage? You're a fucking ignorant child, a ballless, ignorant, coward child. That's what you are. All of them. 100%. All of them. All order followers are that. Ballless, ignorant, child cowards. I'll say it to your fucking face. And people should be saying it to your face. That's what government is, folks. Whether you think so or not, that's the truth, the eternal truth of the matter. The next institution, media. Here's some of the lowest archdemons of hell, quite frankly. You know, to put it in as simple words as I can. They're the bottom-feeding archdemons of hell. That's who these people are. If there's anybody that I think are like even lower than the order followers, it's the media. I personally don't think so. I think the order followers are the lowest of the low. They're the scumbags of the scumbags. But the media are right down there with them. Because what these people are, paid liars. That's what they've always been. But that's not what the public thinks. That's not what the mainstream public thinks. And folks, I'm trying to explain to you today what your work is. The people who are listening to me, really trying to get it, trying to understand what I'm trying to get accomplished, what I want actually done in society, what I would like to see happen in society, is for people to understand the difference between the ostensible purpose of these institutions and the true purpose. But guess what, folks? That is not happening. If you believe that that is occurring and happening, you yourself are a naive child, a naive, ignorant child. All you have to do is do some social experiments. See, most people just don't even have the courage or the balls to do that. Do some social experiments in your own town or city. Go into your own local pub or venue, a music venue, wherever, a restaurant, okay? And ask people, do you think the mainstream media does a fair job in trying to accurately report what's taking place? Do you think that that's their intended purpose? Like, do you think that that's what the people who actually, you know, dress in their suit and tie or their, business type outfit and go into work every day as part of the mainstream media, is their goal in their mind to say, I want to try to accurately report what's happening in the world and accurately report truth so that other people can make informed decision making? Just do that experiment and see the results that you get, the answers that you get. And I'm telling you, if you're not shocked and horrified, like, I don't know what to tell you. You're not paying attention. You're not paying attention to the zeitgeist. The zeitgeist, the general mindset and worldview of the people all around us. You think because you've seen through the facade that other people have, and it's not the case. And it isn't that you could say, oh, numbers are growing slowly. No, it doesn't. It's not that numbers are growing slowly. Percentages are staying the same as the population grows. That's why some more people are aware of this, because the population is growing. But if you actually looked at percentages, they're not really changing. This is why the great work is not succeeding. The potential teachers are not coming forward in courage and speaking the truth to the average member of the public. Like I said, I asked a family member, does anybody ever complain about the mainstream media? No, they watch it. I go into family members' homes. They're watching the 6 o'clock news around dinner time. Perking their ear up when they hear something that they think interests them, and nodding their head, believing that that's what's going on. You believe that? But I'm telling you, it's everywhere. I'm not doing this to try to... People will go, oh, I'm somehow an agent working for the dark side because I'm telling people all these bad things about what's going on in society. I'm trying to accurately portray what I see. And it doesn't matter where I go. I go to any town, city in the United States. I've traveled just about every single state in the entire United States, and I've traveled to many foreign countries. I mean, not like a better portion of the world, but I've traveled to enough places that I've seen other cultures. And it's no better than it is here. Anywhere. Anywhere. Not a bit. As a matter of fact, I think America, percentage-wise, probably has the greatest percentage of an awake population than any other country in the world. And that's sad. That's not saying much, folks. That's a very, very sad dynamic. So the ostensible purpose of the mainstream media is to provide accurate information to people so that people can make informed decisions regarding what type of behavior they're going to choose to take. People want their behavior and their decision making to be based on reality, right? So that's what the media is allegedly here to do, to provide that accurate information about what's taking place in the world so people can make their decision making accurately based on informed decisions based on accurate information. And they're supposed to act in a power checking capacity to corruption in other institutions like government. That's why it's been called the fourth arm of the government, in addition to the executive, legislative, and judicial branches. It's been called the fourth estate, the fourth branch of government. Okay? Has been a nickname given to the media because that's what it's supposed to do. That's what real journalists would be charged to do. We don't have that. That's not what the media is today. You look at operations like Project Mockingbird, Operation Mockingbird, a CIA op. You know, I believe that's one of the reasons that Jim Keith was taken out. He did a lot to expose that in his books. You know, and you know, talking about how many people in the intelligence agencies are on the payroll of mainstream media, feeding it disinformation and just concocting fake news stories to brainwash the population and to change the worldview of the whole population. And this research was done back in the 1970s, and there were hundreds and hundreds of people embedded from intelligence operations like the CIA that aren't supposed to operate on U.S. soil, but are supposed to be intelligence, foreign intelligence gathering outfits. And hundreds of them were operating within the mainstream media back in the 70s. Imagine how many thousands are now. No, folks, the true purpose of the media is to control the worldview of the government subjects, to control the minds of the government slaves. That's what the purpose of the media is, to feed you the narrative that the government wants you fed and wants you believing. That's the true purpose of the media, if we're being honest with ourselves. It's to spread government and corporate propaganda, lies, and misdirection. To get people not able to discern truth from falsehood because you're feeding their minds with so much garbage. You could group entertainment right in with this, because most entertainment is the same form of mind, you know, polluting garbage. And ultimately, it is to control the public's perception of what is possible, mostly what is socially possible. That's the purpose of the mainstream media. To get you thinking, oh, change isn't possible. Look at how bad people are to each other. You know, we could never not have a society without government. You hear that from the day you're born through these paid prostitute liars. You're going to eventually come to believe it. And that's where most of society is at. Not only do they believe the propaganda that's being shoved down their throat by the media, they actually believe the ostensible purpose of the media is to tell them the truth. And they believe they're doing a good job at it. In social experiments I've done, asking just about every single person in a pub, a local venue here in Philadelphia, do you think the mainstream media is doing a good job, or trying to do as good of a job as within their ability to do, to report what they come to learn accurately regarding what's taking place in the world? 100, folks, this is one of the most terrifying, horrifying results I've ever gotten in a social experiment. In a pub that is also a music venue in the just past like the Northern Liberties area, maybe up toward the North Philly area of the city, which is somewhat of a hipster area these days. Myself and a friend did a small social experiment asking people, do they actually believe the media are trying to tell people the truth to the best of their ability? 100% of the people in the pub said yes, they are. Every single individual, every single one. Not one person said, no, I think they're paid liars. And they don't care about anything but their paycheck. Not one, zero. Not one person. And people think the world's waking up. And let me tell you something, folks. I'll bet you I'd go do it all over again and get the same exact result. Because this population is asleep. Hardcore asleep. Education. Here's one of the reasons why the public is as dumb as it is. Here's one of the reasons the population is as docile and naive as it is. One of the reasons the public doesn't have the critical thinking skills they need to discern when they're being brainwashed, propagandized, and ultimately deceived. The ostensible purpose of so-called education, whether it be all the way down to grade school education, all the way up through higher education, through the universities. I don't care what level we're talking about. The ostensible purpose that people believe that it's serving is to teach the young the necessary information and life skills required for successful living. And secondly, to provide the tool set for critical thinking and informed decision making. Is the mainstream education system actually succeeding in that role? Is it actually attempting really to do that? Is that its real purpose? And I'll tell you what, you go and ask people. I'll go and ask friends of friends, family members who are involved. Is this what the education system's really set up for? And they're, yep, yes, doing as best as they can with the limited resources that they have. You know, and teachers have the best of intentions, and they're not just following a script that is harming children to get a paycheck and to just keep the status quo and to not rock the boat so that they have a paycheck to feed themselves and their family. No, it isn't that. It's that they're really trying to educate people and teach them truth and teach them critical thinking skills and discernment skills. Yeah. And I'll tell you what, assholes in my own family believe that shit. They believe the ostensible purpose of the education system because some of them are involved in it. And they actually believe that bullshit. Because they're lying to themselves. And they don't want to acknowledge that they may be involved in something that is harmful to others. Namely, the developing minds of young children and impressionable youth. And it's their paycheck. It's their bread and butter. So God forbid you talk anything bad about that. You know, this is my identity. I consider myself a teacher in the public school system or whatever. How dare you attack that? That's attacking me. No, that's just what you do. And the institution you're involved in doing it through. That's not who you are. It shouldn't be the view of who you are, but that's the problem, is people identify themselves with the job that they do. It's called ego identification. Cultural identification. And then we have political identification. You know? Identity politics, job identity. People can't see that there's something beyond that, that they themselves are something beyond that in consciousness and awareness. No. I am my job. So I'll take offense to a critique of my job or the institution that I work within. Instead of being honest with what you are actually participating in. And what is the actual end result of that in the real world? What's the true purpose of the so-called education system? It is to indoctrinate the young into the worldview of the state so that they are easy to control. Present a skewed depiction of both past history and current social events. Politically brainwash the young and impressionable. That's the real purpose of so-called mainstream education. And I would add a fourth one. It's to prepare people to do jobs where they become obedient workers, as George Carlin said. That's why you're never going to have, or you're not going to, through these institutions, you're never going to have an informed population capable of critical thinking. Because the owners of the world don't want that. The owners of society want obedient workers. And that's what the education system is there to churn out. Again, if we're being honest with ourselves. You want to lie to yourself all day that this is set up to actually edify and enlighten people and give them accurate information about the world and what's happening and what's taking place? Lie to yourself all day. All damn day you could lie to yourself. Go look in a mirror and practice lying to yourself about that. You know, you can get better and better at it. So, if we're being honest with ourselves, education is just another aspect of state indoctrination. It's the state putting their people in point positions to brainwash the young, to make them ignorant and docile so that they are easy to control by the state. That's all the modern indoctrination system really is, if we're being honest with ourselves. And there's exceptions to the rule in general. Like, you have some teachers that are going to try to slip some things in with children. That happens. Okay? And there's some schools that do try to teach critical thinking, or some programs that try to teach children critical thinking skills. Okay? So, I'm stopping short of making 100% entire blanket statements regarding this, but in general, it holds very true as a rule. Banking and finance, where some of the highest level occultists operate from this world, their ostensible purpose is to maintain the value of established currencies that the people use, to provide stability and safety for people's financial resources, and to assist economic growth and prosperity throughout society. This is the ostensible purpose of the banking and finance institutions. And again, I would suggest that anybody who believes that that's actually what these institutions do behind the scenes is an extremely naive child, not capable of true critical thinking, and wants to lie to themselves and tell themselves pretty, lighthearted stories about what's taking place in our reality, instead of actually looking at the cold, hard truth. Once again, I'm not here to make people feel good or feel better about what's taking place. I'm here to try to get people to accurately see what is truly taking place, and that is ugly. It isn't wonderful and beautiful. The truth right now, where we stand as a human species, is horrific and ugly. And it takes people with thick skin to look at it honestly and assess it and come to an accurate understanding of what it is, instead of looking at the ostensible purpose and go, oh yeah, sure, I guess that's what it's there for. That sounds good to me, because I don't have to think or look any deeper into what's really going on in this world. I'm not telling you that might happen. I'm telling you it will definitively happen if you decide to walk away from something that is immoral and you continue on that path. You persist on that path. You don't just step away from it, go, oh, that was too hard, I'm going back to what I was doing before. No, you have to persist on the path and add actual value to humanity. Do something that actually does contribute value in a volitional way, in a voluntary way. And then you will see the universe come to your assistance and reward. But guess what? Most people will never do it. They'll never test the validity or veracity of my words, because they don't have the courage to actually change their behavior. They're stuck in an endless cycle, a loop of wrong thinking leading to wrong behavior, leading to the failure of courage to get out of that loop. That's exactly where and how they're stuck. The true purpose of the banking and financial system is to direct the economy in ways that best serve the rich and powerful, to maintain an extreme wealth gap between the rich and the poor, and to finance wars of aggression and resource theft. All of this plays into the hands of the state. Keeping people low on the totem pole of resources makes them afraid, makes them always focused on money, makes them live in a scarcity-based mindset all the time, so that they won't step out of that and actually take a chance and do something that is actually moral and truly productive to society. But most people won't be honest with themselves about how this works. They want to believe and trust in the ostensible purpose of the institutions of banking and finance. Again, look at that first one. Direct the economy in ways that best serve the rich and powerful. In other words, make the rich richer and the poor poorer. Maintain that wealth gap. That's what they want. Because the poorer and more destitute people are, the more it becomes practically impossible for them to turn any amount of resources toward a pursuit of truth or helping others. They stay in total survival, our complex mode in the brain, and always self-serving ideology, me thinking because I have to get mine. Because I'm in such a state of deplorable resources. And that's where the ruling class wants people. They don't want people in any kind of a state of prosperity or comfort level when it comes to their own finances or just general resources that they have at their disposal. They don't want that. That doesn't serve their interest. People are easier to control when they're in fear of not having and in fear of the little that they do have might be taken away from them. And so they won't step out of line. And that's what these institutions are here to do. Keep people in fear and keep them in line. And you know what, folks? I just want to go back to it before I even step forward. Again, I listen to the alternative media and nobody's even just hammering on these fundamentals. They're out in space, talking about nonsense. I mean, I just hear more and more and more nonsense. Talking about the paranormal and ghosts and, what the afterlife might be and the flat earth nonsense and, the secret space program, this and that. And just can't we get down to brass tacks and really look at what's really taking place that is truly affecting the lives of other people in the very real 3D world first? I'm not saying never get into all of that, but this is all I hear. I can't even turn on the alternative media anymore and hear anything about the government doesn't give a shit about you or your life. The banks they're not doing anything to rectify the economy or help people to actually get up off of their feet financially. They're there to control you and enslave you. They're not even talking about the enslavement of humanity anymore. I'd never turn on one piece of alternative media where one other human being utters the phrase, government is slavery. I'm the only person on the surface of the earth that I hear doing that. And people want to wonder why I'm in a bitter mood, having done this for 12 fucking years of my life, to try to spread this message of truth and make people aware, and the alternative media is talking about the fucking flat earth? No, I have no right to be bitter. None whatsoever. Because a bunch of smacked asses is who we have to work with on our team. And guess what? If you're not one of those, I'm not talking about you. All these people want to get offended by me saying this. If it doesn't apply to you, you should take no offense. I'm not talking about everybody. It doesn't apply to everybody. It talks about the people who aren't doing a good job explaining the truth about the world to people. If you are doing a good job doing that, wonderful. We need more people like you. But if that's not you, I am talking about you being a smacked ass, not really talking about what's important. But I'll tell you what, most of the alternative media that I turn on, their heads up their ass. They're not doing any kind of a good job whatsoever in it really explaining the dynamics that are going on socially and especially psychologically. And then most of all, they're doing a crap job explaining what's going on spiritually because they know nothing about the occult. And they think they have the dynamic figured out. That's the dangerous part. They think they have all the information that they need, and they do not. So let's look at the last couple of institutions, of worldly institutions. People completely misplace their trust in a naive capacity, like little misguided children. The healthcare or medicine industry, the ostensible purpose of which is to nurture and maintain optimal health for the population, provide medical treatments and care services for the sick, and research new methods for treating and healing diseases. Is that really what the so-called health care industry is doing? Is that what the medical field is really doing in our society? I have to call a huge crock of bullshit if you believe that's true. And yet people believe this. They go to these magicians, these sorcerers in the white lab coats, and, you know, all of their team members, and they say, go ahead and make your diagnosis and tell me what's wrong and tell me what I need to do to fix it. And then they listen and they nod their head and they say, yes, sir, I'll try to do that. Or maybe they don't even bother to do that. They don't even care enough about their health. But the ones who do at least want to get well, then go and listen to the advice that these smacked ass clowns give them, who have done no homework at all on nutrition, know nothing about how the body really truly works and functions regarding the building blocks it's receiving through food. Their creed isn't let thy food be thy medicine and thy medicine be thy food. No. They have the Newtonian paradigm of false science operating in their brain. Everything is a mechanized process and a machine, because matter is prime and there's no such thing as spirit. And all we have to do is look at how the mechanized function works, and then we make it work the way we want it to by surgery and or pharmaceuticals. That's all. So we're going to actually chemically make the machine do something, like a action-reaction based process, you know? And that's going to treat this patient, and that's going to get down to what's ailing them and fix it. And people believe this shit. See, this is my entire family, is that sick patient laying on the bed. Almost every member of my entire family believing the utter sewage that is being dribbled out of the mouth of the doctor and nurse, telling them what they need to do, or the medicines, quote unquote medicine, poison that they should say that they need to be taking, or the surgeries that they need to have. But never uttering one word about proper nutrition. Zero. Never once. Never talk about give the body the building blocks that it needs to maintain optimum health. You have to give it what it needs to do repair work on the body, and then health will follow. You never hear that one time ever, because that takes you right out of that hospital bed. That makes you healthy, and you're no longer a patient. That means you're no longer a customer, because this institution isn't helping patients. This institution is serving customers, like McDonald's or Burger King serves customers with their poison. Okay? That's all this industry is doing. It's selling you a product called drugs and surgery. Pharmaceuticals and surgery are the products to sell, and you're their customer. And if you ain't in the hospital bed, if you're not in the chair in the doctor's office, you're not a customer. You didn't just go through the drive-in or walk into the business. So that's why they got to keep you in there. They don't want healthy people. Sick people are their customers. Healthy people are not. What do you think people looking for the profit motive that these doctors and all the people in the healthcare industry are looking for? You think they're looking for healthy people or sick people? Who's going to make them more profit? Just do the fucking math. Fucking dunces out there, I'm telling you. I mean, they don't even think about it from that perspective, because they're naive, little, trusting children who can't put themselves into the mind of a psychopath. The true purpose. So just to reiterate, I want to talk about the ability to have the mindset of the psychopath within our psyche, so that we can recognize the psychopath's behaviors and the way that they act, because they're good actors. They're good at pretending they care about you. They're good at pretending that they have your best interests in mind. That's what psychopaths are great at, when in fact all they have is their own interest in mind, and they don't give a damn about you in any way whatsoever. And that's why most people cannot put themselves in that mindset. So they say to themselves, they wouldn't do that. No, you wouldn't do that. The psychopath would absolutely do that. And I'm telling you, psychopaths are the top place that they're at is in government. I'd say second in business and finance. Business, finance, and banking. And then I'd say third, they're in the medical industry, because psychopaths think they're God, and they have a God complex. And they love having power over other people. And that's what a lot of doctors have, because they're psychopathic, if not outright psychopaths. allopathic doctors. Let me qualify that. You know, and I don't really care who gets offended by that. I don't give a damn if you have members of your family involved in allopathic medicine. I'm telling you, that's how it works. And ultimately, if they have faith in these institutions, they're psychopathic, if not outright psychopaths. Because they will refuse to acknowledge that there's not really the patient's best interest at heart. It's a profit motive operating. And no, that shouldn't come into play. Then you'll have the people who are defending capitalism and business. Why shouldn't there be profit motive in everything? Because you're talking about sick people, you fucking psychopath. That's why. That's why there's too many damn psychopaths in the so-called freedom movement that are hardcore ANCAPs. You know, you have their compatriot dunces in the ANCOM movement that are anarcho-communist, contradiction in terms. Well, the anarcho-capitalists are just all about making money and profit motive in everything. That shouldn't be your profit motive with helping people. Sometimes your motive just needs to be to do what's right. That's unfathomable to them. You know? Because they don't have that true sensibility of helping alleviate other people's suffering as what should be the real motive of all people. All beings suffering, I should say. The true purpose of the healthcare and medical industry is to make extreme profit from sick people who are looking for the solution to their illnesses. Just think about that. That's what their main motivation is. Make extreme profit from sick people who are looking for the solution to their illnesses. So you're garnering their trust in your bullshit Rockefeller protocols of medicine, which haven't done anything except make people infinitely sicker in our world. And your main motive, your MO, is to make profit from those sick people because of the misplaced trust they've placed in you and your institution. I mean, I can't think of a bigger fucking piece of trash than that. You know? But that they're all over the place. These people are all over the place. And the ultimate goal of the healthcare and medical industry is to undermine the general health of society by providing false treatments in the form of pharmaceuticals, surgery, etc., and other ineffectual treatments which do not address the underlying causal factors of illness. They treat the symptom instead of actually going to the underlying cause and treating the illness from there, from that level of causation. And that's deliberate because they know if they treat it from the level of causation with natural applications, especially nutritional applications, they won't have sick patients to make them rich anymore. They know this. And they're trash for knowing it and pretending like they don't and going along to just make as much profit as they can through their sick, psychopathic Rockefeller protocols. That's the true purpose that the medical industry is fulfilling in our world today, if we're being honest with ourselves. And finally, the seventh of the seven-headed hydra, the seven deadly institutions of our modern world, is science, which I should call scientism. But I'm just referring to it as, in general, the scientific institutions, the institutions of science. And their ostensible purpose is to pursue and learn the truth regarding the qualities and workings of nature through accurate discovery methods, accurate discovery methodologies. This would mean actually applying the true scientific methodology, the trivium, toward the process of observation and learning, and then coming to accurate conclusions, and then publishing those conclusions. That's not what's happening in society. Okay? That's the ostensible purpose. That's what science should be doing. But that isn't what the institutions of modern science are doing. Their ostensible purpose would also be to conduct experiments to prove or disprove theories and hypotheses about the workings of nature and human beings, and then to publish the results of such learning to the public so that the public may be accurately informed regarding the findings of the scientific institutions. We don't have that. We have government-funded science through grant money that is fudging data and results to give to the public the results that the government wants given to the public. That's largely what we have. And also to prop up the other industries like the medical industry, the healthcare industry, the pharmaceutical industry, big agri, etc. That's all we have. You know, we don't have real science taking place in our world through the true scientific methodology. We have scientism, dogmatic forms of science that are conducted through government grant research money within strict boundaries and limits of what's on limits for discovery and what's strictly off limits for discovery and even research and looking into. The true purpose of modern science, or scientism as I call it, is to act as a research and development arm of government to provide new technological means of controlling the public. That's the number one area that science is involved with in today's world. And its true purpose is to skew and misdirect the public's perception and worldview regarding what is possible in the natural world. They don't want people understanding what's possible regarding free energy technology, regarding what Tesla tried to do for the world. They don't want people understanding the device that Stan Meyer created to run, transportation on water that is and completely sustainable and unpolluting. They don't want that. They want to try to tell you that's not possible, even though it's already been done. And the technology suppressed and the people inventing it killed to protect the interests of big oil. And that's the main thing science in the modern form is there for. Scientism is there to skew and misdirect the worldview of human beings so that we don't understand what is naturally possible, what is possible in nature. Because if people did, they wouldn't stay in the totally confined forms of behavior that they do. They would be striving to create a better paradigm and a better world for all of society, all of human beings. Science doesn't have as its true goal the betterment of humanity. It's also a profit motive. It is to get as much government stolen taxpayer grant money as it can to perpetuate their lifestyle. That's it. It was told to me directly. I worked in the science field. I worked in the medical field at the University of Pennsylvania as a person involved in supporting computers in medical research laboratories at the School of Medicine of the University of Pennsylvania. That's what I did for a while. And I heard conversations there and heads of research, laboratory research departments saying, don't ever dare look for a cure. We don't look for cures here. We try to find treatments through potential pharmaceuticals because that's what will keep the grant money coming in and that's what will keep this department in business. Heard a head of a department say this to a lab researcher. And people want to say science is there to actually discover truth about how nature actually works, about the wheel work of nature, and then publish the results to people to improve society. You are a dumb, naive dunce if you actually believe that's the true purpose of the institutions of science that are operating in the modern world. I don't know. There's no polite way of putting it, folks, is that if people believe and place their trust in these institutions, and I'm telling you that they are, it's widespread, it's not diminishing, it's growing and increasing by the day, the type of trust that people place in it. And you want to know why they place their trust in it? Because these institutions pay their bills. So to say I don't trust them is to say, ultimately, I want my money fucked with. And nobody wants to do that because they're chicken shit cowards. That's the reason. That's the answer. Most people won't step away from their source of income because they're chicken shit cowards. See, nobody else will say that. You'll not hear that on any other alternative media program. You won't hear it. You'll only hear it from Mark Passio on What on Earth is Happening. That's the only place. I'll tell you what, I listen to tons and tons of alternative media, and I'll never hear one of the assholes on giving any of that information that they think is so important ever say that to anybody. You want to know why? They're afraid they're going to lose their support. I don't give a shit if not one person ever donates to me ever again. I stand in the truth. And the universe will come to my assistance even if no one individual as a human being will. So be it. You get offended? Turn this shit off. How about that? You think I crossed the line? I don't give a fuck. I'm speaking hardcore truth that no one else will, boys and girls. And I'll continue to do it till the day I leave this shithole planet that's been turned into a shithole. Yeah, the alternative media, they're doing such a great job. I crossed the line. Me. Yeah. Because I'm telling people, you ain't really hitting anybody with any real hardcore truth. You don't want to tell them they're bullshit cowards because they won't stop doing an immoral thing for a paycheck and start doing a moral one to make your daily allotment of what you need to live. No one will say that because they're too afraid of what other people will say about them and think about them. You know, and they're too afraid their clicks on YouTube will dry up. So their monetization of their channel will dry up. Because they're taking all their money from internet censors. This is a slide that I put in my Tesla and Humanity's Missing Paradigm Shift presentation that I delivered at the Tesla Science Foundation's Tesla Conference 2019 in New York at the New Yorker Hotel earlier this year, back in February, or I think it was January. And the slide posed the question, why hasn't the paradigm shift that the whole New Age movement and spiritualist movement back in the 1990s was heralding that was going to happen? It was coming in the year 2000 or 2012, you know? We're going to see a massive paradigm shift. Yeah. Everybody's going to be thinking differently. Our institutions are going to be different. The world as we know it will completely change. Life on Earth will be completely different. We're moving into a new world, a new age. Everything's going to be better. We're going to have, you know, technology assisting humanity instead of acting as a detriment to it. You know, people are going to know spiritual truths about what's been going on in the world. They're going to see institutions completely differently. Oh, it's going to be such a wonderful place. We're going to make so much progress in consciousness. We're practically going to build a paradise here on this planet. The paradigm shift, they called it. Crock of shit, I call it. Because it never happened. It was some bullshit promise that people were selling people hopium about to make money on. See, I'm not making any profit from selling people on hope, in case you haven't noticed. People are donating to me because I add value to their lives through telling them the harsh truth that no one else will. So I posed the question, why hasn't the paradigm shift that the spiritualist movement of the early 1990s promised us, why hasn't it already happened? And here were the reasons that connect directly in with the show that I'm doing here today. Most people still believe in authority. Most people still believe, quote, authority and government are morally legitimate and necessary, and still believe in the false left-right political paradigm. They believe in the institution of government. They believe in the absolute bullshit notion called authority vested in human beings, and they believe government is morally legitimate, has a morally legitimate reason to exist, and is necessary to control people. And the vast majority still believe in the false left-right political paradigm. which are all total crocks of illusory bullshit. Most people still believe the mainstream media and its pundits are telling them anything resembling truth and trying to bring any value to their life by helping them make informed decision makings through accuracy of information. Most people in the world still believe that the purpose of mainstream science, which I call scientism, is a genuine search for truth and the betterment of humanity through the understanding of nature and the development of new technologies. Most people still believe that the purpose of the so-called education system is to edify and enlighten people through genuine knowledge. I want to go back to mainstream media again because the social experiment, I just really can't get it out of my head of how horrific the end results were. That people were actually saying that they thought the media just somehow gets things wrong. They don't always have their facts straight. They're actually trying to report the truth, but sometimes they just don't have all their ducks in a row and they just don't have all their facts straight. And so they give inaccurate information to people believing that it was accurate at the time. Yeah, that's what it is. They're just so well-intentioned. And they just, at the time, had some things wrong. And so they reported things to the best of their ability and knowledge. And then they later realized that what they were saying, you know, it might not have been true. And, oh, sorry. Yeah, that's how it works. I mean, could you imagine the childish mindset? The childish, dunce-like, naive, overly trusting mindset. Just out there openly saying, please just deceive me. You know, I'll just take it. Just shove the hose down my throat and turn the faucet on. I can't get it down the gullet fast enough. Going back to the final slide about the missing paradigm shift that should have already happened but has nowhere near happened. The final bullet point on this slide, most people still believe that the other institutions of religion, banking, medicine, law enforcement, military, and just about every other societal institution exist to do what they claim they exist to do. Or in other words, they believe in those societal institutions' ostensible purpose, but they do not understand their true purpose. And here's the way I want to kind of wrap up the idea of talking about like the fact that people have this trust, this misguided, misplaced, naive trust in these institutions before I get to the why. Okay? But the fact of the matter that so many people are actually in this condition, I've said before and I'll say it again. Those who are committed, meaning have a personal commitment in their lives to the societal institutions, should actually be committed to an institution, meaning a mental institution. Meaning an institution for the mentally ill. Because that's what these people are. They belong in a fucking straitjacket. In a mental institution. Those who are committed to the institutions should be committed to an institution. Okay? That's the actual and accurate way that the people who actually put their misguided faith and trust in these institutional bodies of humanity, that's what they really are. They're insane people that cannot come to an accurate understanding of how reality works around them. And what they are doing through their decision making of placing their trust in these institutions is actually acting as a completely insane individual in the world, and therefore doing harm to other people in the world because they're propping these institutions up with their trust and with their money. Get as offended as you like, that's the truth. So let's get into the real psychological reasons regarding why this trust is so prevalent in our society. And I'm just jumping straight to it and explaining it right out. The number one reason that people still have faith in all of these institutional bodies is due to unresolved psychological parental abandonment issues that are nested deep way down in their subconscious mind, and that they have never dredged up from the subconscious, brought to the conscious surface, and confronted head on and dealt with, and then worked with that shadow material, that shadow work, done the shadow work to deal with that shadow material to actually resolve those psychological issues. That is the actual point of fact reason that we have a society that is completely naive and trusting in all of the worldly institutions all around us that are doing nothing to serve who we say we are and what we want. Zero. So I see, folks, I ask people all the time, what the hell has the government, has the medical industry, has the media, has the scientism, has the educational institution ever actually really done for you? What has it done to enhance or increase the quality of your life? Anything that has enhanced or increased the quality of your life has been done by you through your own hard work and effort, not due to any of those institutions. You should take credit if you're in a position of prosperity and knowledge and right behavior. No one else did that but you. These institutions didn't do that. Why would anybody even in a better position claim that it was because of any of these institutions? See, it's psychological transference onto the proxy parent, which is what I'm going to talk about. And most people have never studied psychology 1 second in their lives, so they don't have any understanding about how this works. They think it's random, or it's like it's just monetary incentive. A lot of it is monetary incentive, but it goes much deeper than that from a psychological point of view. And the real reason is unresolved parental abandonment issues. Now, obviously, there's two parents. Every single one of us, regardless of how we may identify, has two biological parents. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. Give me a moment. I want to take some of my watermelon juice here. I've been drinking watermelon juice like it's going out of style. It is... Let me tell you something, folks. I'm just going to do a complete sidestep for the main presentation here and just talk about this for 1 second. It is the most detoxifying, one of the most detoxifying things you can put in your body. If you think you have unclean food or whatever chemicals, drink a whole lot of watermelon juice, but you have to juice it with the rind, okay? All right, I talked about this when I talked about juicing. Don't just juice the red flesh of the watermelon. If you're going to do watermelon juicing, juice the whole thing. You juice the rind, skin and all. Just clean the skin with clean reverse osmosis or spring water even, or, you know, distilled water. Clean it well on the outside, but you juice the whole rind, skin, everything, okay? And you drink it integrated. This is actually a green juice that I'm drinking here today. I know it looks bright pink, reddish, okay? But let me tell you something. This is a green juice because of juicing the skin and the rind where all of the phytonutrients and detoxifying nutrients are at. And you drink decent quantities of that, I'm telling you, it's going to pull out just about all of the negative toxins that you're accruing in your body. It's a diuretic. It'll make you pee. But it's a good thing, okay? That's flushing toxins. So, back to the presentation. Biologically, folks, we all have two parents, okay? Man and woman. Otherwise, you're not creating that child, okay? I know lots of people are going to take offense just by that biological, natural statement, okay? So we all have a father and we all have a mother. Otherwise, we wouldn't exist on this planet, okay? So, the first form of parental abandonment is motherly parental abandonment. When in whatever form a mother is not present or not doing her job as a mother. Okay, we went into this in the past. I'm not going to reiterate what constitutes parental abandonment. Okay, so you can get that on former shows that I talked about that as a main topic. All right, what we're talking about here is why do people maintain a naive and childlike mindset and psychology when it comes to placing their trust in an unfounded capacity in the mainstream institutions of this planet? And Unresolved parental abandonment issues is the main reason that we as a society are still doing this. It's why we have just about all the problems that we have. Okay? And this leads to dogmatic religious thought, and it leads to misplaced trust in institutions that are harming us, not actually helping us. Certainly not serving who we say we want to be, or where we say we want to go in life. Okay? So the first form is motherly parental abandonment issues. Let's kick back to the slide. There we go. Unresolved motherly abandonment issues will leave the child feeling a lack of care and nurturing, and will lead the child to look for such needs to be resolved by proxy. This means you're not going to look for another real mother, you're going to look for a proxy mother. You're going to look for an ostensible mother, one that will try to fulfill the role of care and nurturing that the biological mother did not provide when the child was young. So those needs are the child will attempt, when they become an adult even, will attempt to resolve those unfulfilled needs by proxy and try to find a proxy parent in the form of a proxy mother. That means not the real thing, a false form of a mother. That's what proxy means. This leads to the, quote, societal institutions care for me, want to provide for me and nurture me, and have my best interests at heart syndrome. Okay? The syndrome that child is going to start to display as a young adult and then eventually into their adult years, whether they are a male or a female, if they have motherly abandonment issues. So don't just confuse this with just because it's a female child that this would apply to only females. It does not. Okay, it could easily be a male child there, but we're talking about the mother not fulfilling her duties and roles as a mother to provide care and nurturing in the traditional motherly role as a parent. Okay, this will lead the child to look for the needs to be met by proxy, by a proxy parent. The institutions will step in and act as the proxy parent. And then the child will develop the Stockholm syndrome of thinking, societal institutions care for me, they want to provide for me, they want to nurture me, and they want to look out for my best interests. And this is how you have, largely, this is the left when it comes to government. And I would say largely these are leftists in the political paradigm in general. Okay? But, you know, these issues span all of the institutional bodies, and it's why people are still in that naive psychological state, like children, no matter how old they are biologically, placing misplaced trust in institutional bodies that are in our society and believing they have their interests at heart when they do not. Now, conversely, we have fatherly parental abandonment issues that go on psychologically. And again, this just is an apropos image that I found that I thought, you know, went along with the concept of a child being ignored. It could easily be a male child there. Okay, so don't just think it's just the father ignoring a girl. Okay, both of the examples, there were female children, but it could be a male or female child. Just I'm trying to make that clear so people don't misconstrue the imagery. Okay, but we're talking about fatherly abandonment issues of any gender child. Okay, and what happens in that instance is the unresolved fatherly abandonment issues will leave the child feeling a lack of protection, direction, and discipline in their lives. And this will lead the child to look for such needs to be resolved by proxy, by a proxy father. The institutions will act in that capacity as a proxy father parent. Okay? This leads to the, quote, societal institutions protect me. They want to keep me safe and secure, and life would be chaos without them syndrome. Okay? So it does the same thing, but in the opposite aspect. The child grows up to be an adult thinking these institutions that are acting as the proxy parent because of their unresolved psychological parental abandonment issues in the daddy aspect, that when unresolved, they think this institution, subconsciously, their subconscious mind replaces the father with the institution as a proxy father, and they think this institution has to be here to protect me, you know, to keep me safe, to keep me secure. And if it didn't exist, life would be abject chaos without it. And nothing could be farther from the truth. It's doing the exact opposite of those things. It's making life actually less secure, less safe, with less rights, with less freedoms. It's not securing any of those things. But because people haven't done the actual homework and haven't actually done upon their own psyches the psychological shadow work, which the occult and occult practices can help them to learn about and then actually enact. And you could call them spiritual practices, but really we're talking about occulted aspects of the self, those which have been deliberately hidden and not talked about, not brought forward to resolve deep down embedded subconscious psychological trauma, because all these institutions don't want that trauma resolved, because they know it's the underlying causal factor of why so much trust is placed in their institution to begin with. They don't want that dealt with and healed. They want it to remain occulted, hidden, nested way down deep in the subconscious mind, where it can manipulate and control people and get them to dance like puppets on strings, which is exactly what we have in our society. This is the real reason, folks. This is the real causal factor of why this trust is not only so present, why it's growing every day. Trust in these institutions is not breaking down, folks. That was a promise that did not go fulfilled. Trust in these institutions. Folks, I wish you could just come and walk with me. Just walk, take a nightly walk with me and just listen. You know, the problem is a lot of people, they don't do enough interaction with other human beings. They sit in their house, they watch their screen, whatever form of screen, whatever Black Mirror you're staring into today. You know, that's all. But they don't go out and interact and talk to people and just try to observe the zeitgeist, try to observe what's going on mentally with other human beings all around us. Most people don't do that. This is what I try to make my work. Now, that doesn't mean that I get into heated debates and conversations with them. Sometimes it's just listening. I'm an eavesdropper. I'll be honest with you. When I go out in public, I eavesdrop. I listen to and you could say, oh, that's not respecting other people's privacy. They're in a public space. I'll listen to what they talk about. And it is the epitome of jackassitude. Okay? Quote me on that. The average person is just drooling nonsense all day long. Never saying anything of substance. Never, ever complaining or talking about the failure of societal institutions. If they have anything to say about these things, it's in praise, because maybe their job depends on it. But you take a walk with me out societally and you just listen to what people have to say, and you'll just see it's all people who just have 100% faith and trust that what's going on around them is for their betterment and best interests. That's how naive and childish they are. And it's because the vast majority of people in our society are still little children whose mommies and daddies failed them, did not pay enough attention to them, did not care for them or nurture them, did not spend enough time with them, did not teach them properly, did not truly raise them morally, and did not protect them and direct them and discipline them. We have a society of grown children with deep-seated, deeply nested parental abandonment issues. And that is the reason we have a society that is completely misplacing their trust in worldly institutions that absolutely are doing nothing really but destroying them and enslaving them long term. So let's move away from addressing not only the what is happening. Now we talked about the why it is happening, but let's talk about the perception of it by the so-called conscious community. And I'm going to wrap up on these couple of slides, and then we'll go to your calls for the duration of the show. Picture this individual in the middle of this circle of people that is depicted in red here in the center of the circle as somebody who is largely conscious and awake, who knows about the degradation and corruption within these institutional bodies, but yet hasn't woken up to the point where they're really, truly, accurately engaging the real proportions and numbers of what's really going on in all of society regarding the awakening of the public mind. And so they think, wow, because the people that I am hanging around with on a daily basis and interacting with on social media on a daily basis happen to understand some of the things, at least that I understand, that means the whole world is waking up and coming into a place of consciousness and awareness. And pretty soon the whole world's going to be changing for the better. But it's a deadly inaccurate conclusion to ascribe that same level of awakening to people outside of those small, tiny, minuscule little social circles that they always dwell in and never really leave. Because this is, now let's go back to the slide because I want to show this, go back full screen, I want to show this animation, okay? Because what this really means is they're not seeing the forest for the trees. They're surrounded by that circle of people and they can't see past them. But what lies past their little inner circle of people? Here's where that individual is. There's their little inner circle that they can't see past. But beyond that, through an extremely large gap in consciousness and knowledge, lies the infinite hordes of humanity. The infinitely ignorant hordes of humanity that go on like an infinite plane in all directions, whose numbers there is no end to, who number in the billions, literally. And they think because they have a tiny little circle of aware people surrounding them in their social network, that somehow that means the world is waking up. I would suggest to my viewing audience, my listening audience, that the people like this in the truth and freedom movement are just as naive as all the people, all the ignorant hordes around them who are misplacing their trust in all of the institutional bodies of humanity. They just have a different form of knowledge. They just see the world through a different set of rose-colored glasses. They can't see the truth which surrounds them because of their naivete, and they're being hooked on hopium. Their narrow and nearsighted vision skews their perception from the truth. And you know what that serves to do? It skews their perception from what their work is to do, and that's why they largely don't do it. That's one of the main reasons they don't actually step onto the spiritual battlefield and do the great work, because they think they're being properly informed that their little social media group is accurately portraying the dynamics of all of humanity, and it most certainly is not. And there's an infinite amount more work to be done, and we have to take the rose-colored glasses off and look at the world for what it really is, beyond the comfort of our little social circles. And with that message, as sobering as it may be, I'll end the formal presentation for today's show. So, see past the inner circle of what you want to see to what is really taking place, and then you'll understand what your work is to do. All right, let's see. Let me try to bring in somebody new that we haven't really heard from. Let's see. Let's go to AWOL Gypsy. AWOL Gypsy, you are live on What on Earth is Happening, episode number 213. Welcome.
Hey, Mark, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Oh, great. Hey, Mark, thank you very, very much for taking my call. I'm actually calling from a 12-hour time zone difference. I've been up all night waiting to try to give you a call tonight, so thank you very much for picking me here tonight. I appreciate it.
No problem. If I may ask, what country are you calling from?
I live in Taiwan.
Taiwan. Okay, great.
I'm from New Jersey originally,
okay.
But I escaped New Jersey.
I hear that.
Yeah, you know all about that.
Yeah.
I currently work here as an English teacher.
Okay.
not for any government school, as you were talking about earlier.
Right.
I'm a tutor, and I'm a freelancer, so I'm the boss. But before I get into that, I just wanted to say I used to be a member of Truth, Freedom, Prosperity years ago.
Yes. I was a very active member in that group here in Philadelphia.
I was a passively active member because I'm not too big on like big groups of people, but like I do a little bit of work here and there. But I met you passively at like Liberties and some End the Feds and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, I remember Liberties. That was once a cool place.
Oh man, those were the good old days back then, man. But anyway, and I knew you had a podcast back in the day, but I just wasn't listening to podcasts.
Right.
So I didn't listen to the show. But about a year and a half ago, I started listening to What on Earth is Happening, and the synchronicity is just unbelievable. Because about 2 years ago, I went vegetarian, and I'm listening to your old podcast about telling people to watch Earthlings and stuff like that. So it's just been incredible. So thank you for all the great work.
And may I ask, were you aware that that was me from Truth, Freedom, Prosperity back then? I guess you heard it in some of the ads that I did for that group in the podcast, but were you initially aware?
I'm sorry, you broke up.
Sorry, I said, were you initially aware that that was me from Truth, Freedom, Prosperity, or did something else just lead you to listen to the podcast?
A friend of mine, Corinne Jacobs?
Oh, yes, yes.
A friend of mine, and back in the day, she mentioned to me about Passio's podcast, and I put it off for a while, and then one day I ended up listening to it. So
got you. That's awesome.
But the key point of why I'm calling tonight is currently I've got a great deal of autonomy when it comes to the curriculum that I teach. And I've been struggling a little bit to like fill the time. I'm like, what am I going to talk about? What am I going to teach for 2 hours? And I'm just very inspired by your plea for people to start teaching more natural law. My school, they have really good teaching methods and articles and great ways to get people involved to learn English, but their topics are just awful and boring. So right now, I'm in the process of developing classroom-style, natural law-related lesson plans.
Nice. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I'm pretty psyched about it. I've already kind of started a little bit, and eventually translate them into Chinese, because they speak Chinese here, and I can read and write a little bit, but speaking and listening. But a friend of mine might be able to help me on that path someday soon. And
there's a country I've never gotten any correspondence and probably never will. That's a really, really tough egg to crack. I mean, that's literally like, firewalled off from the rest of the world practically. That's a tough one. But I'm really glad to see that you might be putting a project like that together all the way out in Taiwan. That's fantastic.
Well, Taiwan is a bit different from China. Taiwan's it's a more or less open society. Right. All the liberties that America has. It's communist China. It's communist China. You have to stay the hell away from.
Right. Exactly.